to do an after-action report on Stalingrad, Advance to the Volga, 1942. This is from Michael Rinella, who was kind enough to send me this. This is Solitaire Area Movement Series, Volume 1. And I was so impressed with it when I unboxed it, and I'll put a link to that in the description, that I just had to get this to the table. In fact, I gotten in a couple plays, and I actually took my lunch hour to get in a few turns just to get a feel for this game. And anyway, really impressed with the production value from Revolution Games. Mounted board, nice thick counters that punch out easy, that you really don't need to clip. At least I don't. I'm not a clipper, so I don't think I need to. Your mileage may vary, but gameplay is very clear, concise. If you've played an area impulse game before, then this is will be very familiar to you. Minus the impulses. There's no impulses because this is solitaire, so it's a matter of moving your units and then activating your units, and then they're spent, or you flip them to the spent side if once they're activated. So, all right, let's see where we ended up here. And I actually did very well this time around. My first time around was not so good, but this time around I got a better feel for it, and actually did really well. I mean, I had some really good rolls. There is dice rolling, right? So there's going to be luck involved, and if you get really bad luck, then you're going to have a tougher time of it. If you get decent luck, you're going to have an easier time of it. And I had some pretty decent luck, and there's also a little bit of randomization in the setup of the Soviets. The Soviets range from these amounts of strength values. This is light urban. The heavy urban are usually tougher. The clear are easier, and then the elevated can kind of range. But these can go anywhere from 4 up to 8 or something like that. Maybe even 9 on the light. The heavy urban can go up to 10, and there's also special abilities. But before we get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about gameplay, but please don't consider this a rules summary with which you can use to play the game, because you will be greatly disappointed. So this is how I ended up. Did really well. I mean, in order to win this game, the victory conditions are, if you're playing the standard game, there's a couple of scenarios in here too, but if you just play the standard game, your victory conditions are, you can get an automatic victory if you cover every area on the map. And there's 50 areas. So if you played impulse games before, impulse games, their areas are numbered. There's 50 on the map. If you control every one of them, and then you win. Well, that's pretty hard to do. I came pretty close, but that's pretty hard to do. And then if your morale is 0 at the end of the game, then it's a victory for the Soviets. So you're playing the Germans, attacking Stalingrad, and the Soviets are the defenders. So my morale was fine, so that was never really an issue, especially if you start taking these heavy urban areas. Then you get, well, anytime you take a +4 area, and the heavy urban areas are usually +4. Some of the light urban are +4 as well. You get +1 your morale. Otherwise, you're going to lose 1 morale every turn at the end of the turn. Plus, there's events and combat can make you lose morale. So that's a constant tug of war on that. So if you play 9 turns, that's the standard game. If you go to 9 turns, the player wins an operational victory if they control at least 1 heavy urban area, and the German control markers on the record track are 40 or greater. And I ended up at 43, so very well. Didn't even come close to that the first time around. So, and I have a couple of urban areas here, and I played with the optional rule, which was you can put Pavlov's house. That's a 10, so that's a nasty one. and I put it where I think it is in this area here. Best I could tell is where I think Pavlov's house might be at on here. It's one of these two areas, and I think it's this one here. But anyway, so final situation, won the game by 3, which was nice. I really kind of struggled up north here. There was even a Soviet area I'd never even revealed. So had a lot of casualties. I usually paid off and with my supply points and bought the units back. But then that became kind of an issue when I was losing stuff up north, because those don't go back onto the regular board where a German unit's at. They have to go back to their starting, so they were always kind of jammed up there a lot. Otherwise, a lot of your units, you can start them off in an area with another German unit, or you can they go into 1 or 2 here. So you kind of keep 1 or 2 cleared so that you can bring reinforcements in as you buy them back through supply points. And plus, you get a couple of reinforcements during the game in the standard game that will let you bring forces on as well. So this was the final situation. Let's talk a little bit about gameplay. The first thing you're going to do is, you have this player 8 here, which is really nice. I use this quite a bit. Looked at the rules a few times, but this is something you really need to look at a lot. The one thing I wish they had on here that they don't have on here is the combat results, and I'll talk about those in a second here. But it'd been nice to have that little key here. Once you know it, it's second nature, and you don't need to refer to it. But if it was on here, it'd been a nice little reminder. So you start with reinforcements. There's 2 times there's reinforcements that come on turn 2 and turn 7 if you're playing the standard game. Turn 2 is going to come in 1 or 2, and turn 7 if they can come on 1 or 2, or if you have I think it's 32 or 31 open, then you can bring them in there. And actually, I had that open, so I was able to bring in the reinforcements on turn 7 up at 32 at that point. Then you go to the random event phase. You're going to roll 3 dice on this random event, and these vary from pulling the 29th off. I actually rolled that, but I rolled it late in the game, or I rolled it on turn 9. They leave on turn 9, and if you have any in the out of play box, you're going to lose morale for that. But if you roll it and they're already off the board, then it becomes a 4, and that's what happened, which I couldn't play any air support, which sucks. But this basically is going to modify your air support. It's going to modify your artillery support. Might increase the defense of certain things. So this is random events that's going to happen every turn. And then after that, you're going to go into supply phase. You can roll 4 dice, 4 of your supply dice here, and you get that number, but the minimum is 16. So if you roll 16 or less, you're still going to get 16. Now, what do you use those supply points for? Well, you're going to buy air support, you're going to buy artillery, and you're going to buy engineers. The artillery support costs 1, and it gives you +2 to 1 attack. But you can only use so many of those as you have units. So you just can't buy 5 artillery support if you only got a couple units in the thing there. And you have it's on this chart as well. So you've got it costs 1 point for supply, but it gives you +2 to attack. Engineer costs 2 points, but it gives you +2, but it also cancels rubble. The air supports cost 3, but in they minus 1d6 from the Soviet defense. Those are really powerful. And then these other things are when you return stuff out of play box. 1 for infantry, 2 for armor, and then you can always increase your morale. So you can play with that tug of war by increasing your morale, which costs 3. So you'll do the supply phase. Then you'll go into the combat phase. And if there's any contested areas, meaning that you're in an area with a Soviet unit, how about that? Then you'll roll under bloody streets, and 1 to 4 is no effect. 5, it reduces morale by 1. 6, you flip the units to spin and reduce morale by 1. So it's kind of that urban fighting, snipers and all that kind of stuff that happens if you're in a contested area. Then you move into the combat phase, which is basically your movement and attacks. And the way you do movement is cost 1 movement to enter a vacant area, 2 movement to enter a vacant area, well, movement a vacant area not adjacent, 2 for a vacant area adjacent, 3 for an area containing a revealed Soviet unit, 4 for an area containing an unrevealed Soviet Union, and then if you want to attack, you can move and attack. Then, or if you're already in a unit you're already in an area with a revealed unit, then you can attack, but that eats up all your movement factors. And the movement factors on the units are here. So this is 6 movement factors, and it's got 3 strength. The rest of this kind of turns into what a typical area impulse, or at least a lot of the area impulse I've played. So you're going, like if you had this stack here, you pick one that's a lead unit. So I'd pick this one because it's a 6. And then you get +1 for everything else. Well, I'd pick that one because that's a 7. I picked the 7, and then for everything else in there, you get +1. So this would be 7 with 2, so that'd be 9. And then if you add in, some artillery support, then that's another +2 for every one of those that you add in. So that's how you build up your German attack. Plus, if you all have the same, if you're the same division or corps, then you get +1 for cohesiveness there. So that's how you build up yours. Now, what are they going to have? Well, they're going to have whatever is in this area. So if I was attacking in this area here, it says +3. So let's say I was revealed, this was the unit. They go on the board like this, so you don't know what they are. Then you flip it over, and then when you move into it, so this would be 4 + 3, so that's a 7. So like say I was at 9, that's a 7, and then you're going to roll, each of you are going to roll 2 dice. Let's get 2 German dice there. Each of you, you're going to roll 2 dice, and then high wins, right? High factor wins. Now, there might be other modifiers on here that come from the type of unit it is, or from these random events. Like if you have rolled the commissars, then Soviet defense is +1 in every single hex that turn. So every attack that turn, they're going to get automatic +1. So this would be 4 + 3 + 1, so that'd be 8. You can check my math later. So then each one of these different units, when you flip them over, they have special effects. The hero here reduces morale after combat, unless it was a repulse or overrun. Ambush, you eliminate the lead attacking unit, unless it was a repulse or overrun. Barrage, you must either replace one of the attacking units in the out of action box, or you've got to retreat. You've got to spend. You got to flip everything to spent, and you retreat. Fanatic means a success turns into a stalemate, unless you do repulse, stalemate, or overrun. And then the guards, they get to roll 3 dice instead of 2, and they get to ignore the lower one. So the guards gets pretty nasty. So each one of these different unrevealed units have special abilities as well. They're going to have one of those various type of defensive strategies, plus of course their number. And as I said, the heavy urban have higher numbers, the light urban have the second highest, and then the elevated kind of range from low to high, and clear is the lowest generally. So so that is how you, and the Pavlov's How, that's an optional rule. They act as guards, so they're going to get an extra dice there. That's basically the game. Now what I didn't talk about is the combat. So how do you resolve combat? That's the one thing I wish they had that chart in here. But basically, you're going to try to get the highest number. They're going to try to get their highest number by adding up all the modifiers. And then whoever has the highest wins. So if you're a success, so if you have a higher attack than defense, then it's a success, and the Soviet unit is eliminated. You're flipped to spent, and then you get to put one of these control markers, and that's how you're keeping track of your victories, by putting all those control markers on the board. If it's a stalemate, then there's no effect. The attacking units are flipped to spent, and they're just sit there. So then you're going to have a contested area. That's when you possibly get the bloody streets next turn. If it's repulsed, then you're going to lose the lead attacking unit. So if I pick that 7 there, well, then that 7's going to go into the out of action, so it gets eliminated. But of course, you can buy those back through supply. But then it's got to retreat. And if it retreats into a stacked area, you potentially have some issues. You have a maximum stacking of like 4, I believe, as units in an area. But you have to retreat if there's a repulse there. And then overrun. The reason why you want to do overruns is because that will ignore certain things like heroes, ambushes, and fanatics. So that helps you ignore some of these special abilities that these unrevealed units have. And but in order to get an overrun, you have to not only have a higher number, but you have to have a number that's higher than the defensive value of the unit. So like this one, you have to have 4 or more in order to ignore its special ability. Now, guards, you don't have to worry about ignoring that. That's going to have that no matter what. But if that was a fanatic 4, you'd have to have more than 4 to ignore that. That's basically it. There's some optional rules in here. I did the isolate rule and the Pavlov's house because I'm always interested in Pavlov's house. The isolate rule, basically, if a Soviet unit cannot trace a path back to the Volga, then it's isolated. And then there's a chart in here where you roll when it's engaged by the Germans. You roll here and see what the effect is. So on a 1, it gets actually greater defense, so it's beefing up. 2, 3, no effect, and then 4 -1, 5 -1, and 6 -2, so that it increases its defense because it's out of supply because it's isolated. So that's most of it. Again, you don't play by this. Go read up on your own because I'm known to mess up stuff, but that's a basic summary of how the game plays. Again, it pulls a lot of features from the area impulse feel, except you don't have impulses. You don't have that random number of impulses. You don't know when the turn's going to end. The turn's going to end when you ran out of when you stop, right? When you run out of active units, when everybody's spent, or you just can't move people. Like there was times where I couldn't move a unit around because of the movement factor. I didn't have enough movement points to move adjacent to an occupied, either revealed or unrevealed Soviet area. And so that's one of the keys of this game is planning your attacks, figuring out how you're going to do your attack. I basically came this way. There's some units starting out down here, and I just basically moved up this way and then took some right across the top. At some point, you're going to meet, and then you're going to have a traffic jam, and you got to figure out how to direct your troops to make the right attacks with the amount of movement points that they have. So there is decisions in this game. There's randomness in this, of course, but there's the AI has unknown information to you. You don't know what the defense's abilities are or what the special abilities are. So you're going to run into some stuff that you don't know about. So that adds a lot to the replayability too. So you're going to be making decisions on how you plan your attack, how you allocate the movement, how you spend your supply points. Do you buy units back? Do you buy air support or artillery support? Or engineers even. Engineers probably don't need as much because unless you play, I think there's the special rule for rubble is a special rule, and I didn't use that. So so there you have it. There is I guess that's all I have to say about it. Love to know your thoughts if you've been playing this or if you've got this or if you're thinking about it. If this looks interesting to you, love to know what your thoughts are on any of this. Again, I want to thank Michael Rinella and Revolution Games and the name of his game company, which escapes me from time. Take Aim's Designs. I think that's Michael's company. Want to thank them for this. I'm going to play it some more. I might actually do some more after action as well on it, but I'm liking it. I like all the production value is spot on. The gameplay is easy to get to, and that's what you want. For me, things that you want in a solitaire game is you want something that's easy to set up, easy to easy to understand and play, because you might not be playing it every week or every month. You're going to pick it up at whenever you feel like it, and you want to be able to set it up, put it down, and get into it and play it pretty quick without having to go through a lot of rules. There's not a lot of rules. They're relatively intuitive, and that whole special abilities and areas that really adds to the tenseness of your decisions in this whole thing. So right now, really liking this, but love to know your thoughts on it, what you guys think about it. That's what I have for you today. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching.